The church was filled with flowers and the sweet smell of perfume. Soft music played as people in nice clothes found their seats. Today was Robert Miller's second chance at love. His first wife, Maria, had died 3 years ago, leaving him alone with their son, Ethan. Ethan, a small 10-year-old boy with dark hair like his mother's, sat in the front row next to his grandmother. He wore a new suit that felt stiff and uncomfortable. His face did not show the happiness everyone expected on this special day. "Smile, Ethan," his grandmother whispered, patting his hand. "Your father deserves to be happy again." Ethan nodded but did not smile. His stomach felt tight, like it was twisted into knots. He had a secret hidden in his pocket, a secret that was burning a hole through the paper it was printed on. At the front of the church, Robert stood tall in his black tuxedo. At 42, he still looked young and strong. The past 3 years had been hard on him, raising Ethan alone while running his construction company. But meeting Melissa White had changed everything. After a quick 8-month romance, he had asked her to marry him, eager to make a new family. Melissa was beautiful with her long blonde hair and bright blue eyes. She had come to their town just last year, saying she moved from the East Coast for a fresh start. She told stories about growing up in Boston, about her career as a nurse, and how she had always wanted a family, but never found the right man, until Robert. The music changed, and everyone stood up. The big wooden doors at the back of the church opened. Melissa appeared in a flowing white dress that made her look like an angel. People gasped at how beautiful she looked. As she walked slowly down the aisle, Ethan's hand moved to his pocket, touching the folded papers inside. Last week, while looking for batteries in Melissa's home office desk, he had found something strange. At first, he didn't understand what he was seeing. But after using his computer to search online, the truth became clear. Melissa smiled at Ethan as she passed him. He tried to smile back, but couldn't. She didn't notice. She was too focused on Robert, who was waiting for her with love in his eyes. The priest began the ceremony with words about love and trust. Ethan's heart beat faster with each passing minute. His grandmother noticed something was wrong and squeezed his hand. "Are you feeling sick?" she whispered. Ethan shook his head. He wasn't sick, he was scared. What he was about to do would change everything. But he loved his father too much to stay quiet. "Marriage is a sacred bond," the priest was saying, "a promise made before God and these witnesses." Melissa and Robert held hands, looking into each other's eyes. They had written their own vows, and Robert went first. "Melissa, you came into my life when I thought I would never feel love again," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You've brought light back into our home and shown Ethan and me that family can grow even after loss. I promise to love you, honor you, and cherish you for all of our days." Tears shined in Melissa's eyes as she started her vows. "Robert, meeting you and Ethan has been the greatest blessing of my life. I've never known love like this before. I promise to be faithful and honest, to support you through good times and bad, and to be the best wife and stepmother I can be." Ethan couldn't take it anymore. The word honest made something snap inside him. He stood up suddenly, surprising his grandmother. The priest continued, "If anyone can show just cause why this couple cannot be lawfully joined together in marriage, let them speak now or forever hold their peace." The church was quiet. This part of weddings was usually just a formality. No one ever actually spoke up. Except today. "I have something to say," Ethan said, his voice small but clear in the silent church. Everyone in the church turned to look at Ethan. His grandmother tried to pull him back down to his seat, but he stepped away from her and moved into the aisle. His hands were shaking as he pulled the folded papers from his pocket. "Ethan, what are you doing?" Robert asked, his face showing confusion and embarrassment. Melissa's smile disappeared. Her eyes narrowed as she looked at the papers in Ethan's hand. For a second, Ethan thought he saw fear on her face. "I'm sorry, Dad," Ethan said, his voice getting stronger. "But I found something you need to know before you marry her." The guests began to whisper to each other. Some took out their phones to record what was happening. The priest looked uncomfortable and cleared his throat. "Young man, this is not the time or place for." "She's not who she says she is," Ethan blurted out, cutting off the priest. He unfolded the papers with shaking hands. "Her name isn't Melissa White. It's Lisa Chambers." A gasp went through the church. Robert's face turned white. He looked at Melissa, who was now glaring at Ethan with cold eyes. "What are you talking about, Ethan?" Robert asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Ethan walked closer to the front of the church. "I found these papers in her desk last week when I was looking for batteries. These are copies of a driver's license and passport with her picture, but a different name. And this," he held up another paper, "is a news story about a woman who tricked men into marrying her and then stole their money." Melissa's face changed. The sweet, loving look was gone. Now she looked angry and dangerous. "You little brat," she hissed. "You had no right to go through my things." Robert stared at her in shock. "Melissa, is this true?" Instead of answering, Melissa grabbed her purse from her maid of honor and reached inside. Robert's best friend, Jack, who was a police officer, moved quickly. He grabbed Melissa's arm before she could pull out whatever she was reaching for. "Let me go," she shouted, trying to pull away. Jack held her firmly. "Ma'am, I need you to calm down." Robert took the papers from Ethan and looked at them. His hands trembled as he saw the evidence of Melissa's lies. The woman he thought he knew, the woman he was about to marry, was a stranger. Ethan's grandmother came forward and put her arm around the boy. "Robert, what's happening?" "She's a con artist, Grandma," Ethan explained. "She marries rich men and then takes their money. She's done it 3 times before." Jack pulled something from Melissa's purse. It was a small gun. The guests screamed, and some ran for the exits. "She has a gun," someone shouted. Jack quickly secured the weapon while another guest, who was also a police officer, came to help. Together, they held Melissa as she struggled and shouted. "You ruined everything," she screamed at Ethan. "I would have been good to you. You could have had a mother again." Robert seemed frozen in place, unable to believe what was happening. Then he looked at his son, standing brave and scared at the same time. He walked over and pulled Ethan into a tight hug. "I'm sorry, Dad," Ethan whispered, tears now falling down his face. "I didn't want to ruin your wedding, but I couldn't let her trick you." Robert held his son tighter. "You didn't ruin anything, son. You saved me. You saved us." The police were called, and everyone waited in the church. The happy day had turned into a nightmare. Guests talked in hushed voices, some recording everything on their phones. Melissa sat in a chair at the front of the church, watched carefully by Jack and the other officer. As they waited for the police to arrive, Robert kept his arm around Ethan. The boy had been brave, braver than anyone could have expected, but now that it was over, Ethan felt scared and tired. He leaned against his father and closed his eyes. "It's going to be okay," Robert promised, though his voice shook. "We're going to be okay." Outside, sirens wailed as police cars pulled up to the church. The truth about Melissa, or Lisa, was about to come out fully. The police arrived quickly. 3 officers entered the church, their faces serious as they took in the strange scene. A bride in a white dress being held by 2 men, a groom looking lost and confused, and a young boy standing nearby with papers in his hand. "What's going on here?" asked the lead officer, a tall woman with short gray hair. Jack, still holding Melissa's arm, explained the situation. "I'm Officer Jack Thompson, off duty. This woman was about to marry my friend, but his son discovered she's using a fake identity. When confronted, she reached for this." He handed over the small gun to the police officer. The lead officer took the gun carefully and nodded to her partners to take over watching Melissa. "Ma'am, you're under arrest for carrying a concealed weapon and possible identity fraud. You have the right to remain silent." As the officer read Melissa her rights, Robert knelt down next to Ethan. "I need to know everything, son. How did you figure this out? Ethan took a deep breath. Remember last Saturday when you sent me to her house to get your toolbox? While I was there, I couldn't find the batteries for my game controller, so I looked in her desk. That's when I found a folder with different IDs and news stories about her. Ethan handed the papers to his father. Robert looked through them slowly, his hands still shaking. There were driver's licenses from 3 different states, each with Melissa's picture, but different names. There was a newspaper article about a woman who married a rich doctor in Florida, emptied his bank accounts, and disappeared. The picture of the woman looked just like Melissa. I didn't understand everything at first, Ethan continued. But I used your iPad to search online about these things. I found more stories about her on the internet. She's wanted in other states, Dad. She's done this before. The wedding guests were still watching everything, many recording videos on their phones. Robert's mother came over and put her hands on Ethan's shoulders. You were very brave, Ethan, she said softly. But how did you know what to do with this information? Ethan looked down at his shoes. I watched a show with Dad about con artists last month. I remembered they said if someone is using a fake name, they might be trying to trick people. I was scared to tell Dad because he seemed so happy, but last night I heard them talking about putting his house in her name too, and I knew I had to stop the wedding. The police were now leading Melissa, or Lisa, out of the church. As they passed by, she stopped and looked at Ethan with cold eyes. You think you're so smart, don't you? She hissed. You have no idea what you've done. Your father will never find someone like me again. Robert stepped between them, shielding his son. You're right. I hope I never find someone like you again. Someone who lies and tricks people who are just looking for love. The police officers pulled her away toward the exit. Before they reached the doors, one of the wedding guests stood up. It was Mrs. Chen, Robert's neighbor. Excuse me, officers, she called out. I think I recognize this woman from the news. Wasn't there a story last year about someone who looked like her stealing from an old man in Arizona? The lead officer paused. We'll look into that, Mom. Thank you. More guests began to speak up, offering information about similar cases they had heard about or seen on TV. It seemed that Melissa, or whatever her real name was, had left a trail of victims across the country. As the police finally led her outside, the church fell quiet. The priest, who had been standing in shocked silence, finally spoke. I believe under the circumstances, this ceremony is concluded, he said gently. Perhaps everyone should go home now. People began to gather their things and leave, many stopping to pat Ethan on the shoulder or tell Robert how sorry they were. Outside, camera flashes from news photographers lit up the church steps as Melissa was placed in a police car. Robert, Ethan, and Grandma stood together at the altar, surrounded by flowers meant for a celebration that would never happen. What do we do now, Dad? Ethan asked quietly. Robert put his arm around his son's shoulders. Now we go home, son. Together. The ride home from the church was quiet. Robert drove while Grandma sat in the front seat. Ethan sat in the back, still wearing his suit but with the tie removed. No one spoke for a long time. The only sound was the radio playing soft music. When they arrived at their house, they found 2 news vans parked outside. Reporters with cameras stood near the driveway, ready to ask questions. Oh no, Robert said, slowing the car. They're already here. Don't stop, Grandma said firmly. Drive around the block. We'll go to my house instead. Robert nodded and kept driving. Ethan looked back at the reporters getting smaller in the distance. He had not thought about this part, about how their private family problem would become big news that everyone would want to know about. Grandma's house was small but cozy. She had lived there alone since Grandpa died 5 years ago. As soon as they went inside, Grandma started making hot chocolate for everyone. It was what she always did when things were bad, even though it was warm outside. I'm sorry about all this, Dad, Ethan said, sitting at the kitchen table. I didn't know what else to do. Robert sat down across from his son. His eyes were tired, and his face looked older than it had that morning. You did the right thing, Ethan. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad at myself for not seeing who she really was. How could you have known? Grandma asked, placing mugs of hot chocolate in front of them. She fooled everyone. Not everyone, Robert said, looking at his son with pride. Ethan saw through her. Ethan wrapped his hands around the warm mug. I didn't trust her from the beginning. She was always different when you weren't around, Dad. She would tell me to hurry up or be quiet. Once she said I was in the way. Robert's face showed surprise and then sadness. Why didn't you tell me this before? Ethan looked down. You seemed so happy, and I thought maybe all stepmoms were like that at first. I didn't want to make you sad again, like after Mom died. Grandma sat down with them, her own mug steaming. That's too much responsibility for a 10-year-old to carry. The phone rang, making them all jump. Grandma answered it, listened for a moment, then held it out to Robert. It's Jack. He says the police need to talk to you. Robert took the phone and walked into the living room to talk privately. Ethan could hear his father's voice, sometimes loud, sometimes quiet. When Robert came back, his face was serious. The police found a lot more evidence in Melissa's apartment, he told them. She had fake IDs, credit cards in different names, and information about other men she was planning to meet. Meet? Ethan asked. Target, Grandma said quietly. She was looking for other men to trick. Robert nodded. They also found papers about our house, our bank accounts, and my business. She was planning everything. Ethan felt cold despite the hot chocolate. What would have happened if you married her? Robert ran his hand through his hair. Jack says these types of people usually wait a few months, move some money around, then disappear. Sometimes they take valuable things too. The TV in the corner of the kitchen was on low volume, but suddenly Ethan pointed to it. Dad, look. On the screen was a picture of their church with police cars outside. The words Bui Vdang Con Artist Kogt showed at the bottom of the screen. The news reporter was talking about what had happened. Police say this woman, known as Melissa White to the groom, has used at least 5 different names in the past 6 years. She is suspected of conning at least 3 other men out of their savings. Sources say it was the groom's young son who discovered her true identity and stopped the wedding just in time. The TV showed a picture of Melissa being put into a police car, her white wedding dress making the scene even more strange. We should turn that off, Grandma said, reaching for the remote. Wait, Robert said, holding up his hand. I want to hear this. The reporter continued. Police are asking anyone with information about this woman to come forward. They believe there may be more victims who haven't reported what happened to them. Robert turned off the TV and looked at his son. You didn't just save me, Ethan. You might have saved other people too. The next morning, Robert, Ethan, and Grandma ate breakfast together. They had all stayed at Grandma's house overnight. No one had slept well. Robert's phone kept ringing with calls from friends, family, and even strangers who had seen the news. He had turned it off after midnight. We need to go home today, Robert said, pushing his eggs around on his plate without eating much. We can't hide forever. What about the reporters? Ethan asked. He was still in his pajamas, borrowed from the set he kept at Grandma's house for sleepovers. They'll get bored and go away soon, Grandma said, but she didn't sound sure. After breakfast, Jack called again. This time, the news was even more surprising. The police found out her real name. Robert told them after hanging up. It's not Lisa Chambers either. Her real name is Diana Moreno. She's wanted in 5 states for fraud and theft. Diana, Ethan repeated. That doesn't even sound like Melissa. That's the point, honey, Grandma explained. Con artists use different names so people can't find them easily. Robert sat down heavily in his chair. Jack says they need Ethan to come to the police station to make a statement. They want to know exactly what he found and how he found it. Ethan's eyes went wide. The police station. Am I in trouble? No, Robert said quickly. You're a hero, son. They just need your help to make sure she goes to jail." They drove to the police station an hour later. Robert was worried there would be more reporters, but the station was quiet. Inside, a friendly police officer named Officer Rivera took them to a small room with comfortable chairs and a table with water bottles and cookies. "We try to make this easier for kids," Officer Rivera explained. "Ethan, I just need you to tell me everything you remember about finding those papers. Take your time." Ethan told the whole story again, from the beginning. How he went to Melissa's house to get his dad's tools. How he looked for batteries in her desk drawer. How he found the folder with different IDs and news stories. "Did you take anything from the folder?" Officer Rivera asked. "Just copies," Ethan said. "I used her printer to make copies of the important papers. I put everything back the way I found it. I didn't want her to know I saw them." Officer Rivera nodded, looking impressed. "That was very smart, Ethan. Many adults wouldn't have thought to do that." After Ethan finished telling his story, Officer Rivera showed them something on her computer. It was a website with pictures of Diana Moreno over the years. In each picture, she looked a little different. Different hair color, different style of clothes, different makeup. But it was always the same woman. "We've been tracking her for 3 years," Officer Rivera said. "She's very good at disappearing just before we catch her. You two are the first victims who stopped her before she could take anything." "We were lucky," Robert said, putting his hand on Ethan's shoulder. "It wasn't luck," Officer Rivera said. "It was your son being observant and brave." As they were getting ready to leave, the door opened and a man in a suit walked in. He had gray hair and kind eyes behind his glasses. "Mr. Miller, I'm James Parker. I'm one of Diana Moreno's previous husbands." Robert stood up to shake the man's hand. "I guess we're part of an unfortunate club now." Mr. Parker looked at Ethan. "Is this the young man who caught her?" "The police told me what happened." Ethan nodded shyly. "I lost my house and most of my savings to that woman," Mr. Parker said. "She was my wife for 6 months before she disappeared with everything. You saved your father from the same fate." Before they left the police station, 3 more men arrived. All of them had been tricked by Diana Moreno under different names. All of them wanted to thank Ethan. "I wish I had a son like you when I met her," one of the men said, his eyes sad. On the drive home, Ethan was quiet, thinking about all those men and how their lives had been ruined. "What are you thinking about?" Robert asked. "I'm glad I found those papers," Ethan said simply. "But I'm sad that she hurt so many people." The next few weeks were hard for Robert and Ethan. Their story was on TV, in newspapers, and all over the internet. People they didn't know kept calling or sending messages. Some wanted to interview them. Others wanted to make their story into a movie or a book. Going back to school was the hardest part for Ethan. On his first day back, everyone stared at him in the hallways. Some kids wanted to be his friend suddenly. Others made jokes about his almost stepmom being a criminal. "Is it true she had a gun in her purse?" asked Tyler, a boy who had never talked to Ethan before. "Did she try to kill you when you found out her secret?" asked another kid at lunch. Ethan didn't want to talk about it, but the questions kept coming. By the end of the day, he was tired of being the center of attention. When Robert picked him up after school, Ethan climbed into the car and said, "I don't want to go back tomorrow." Robert looked worried. "That bad, huh?" Ethan nodded. "Everyone keeps asking me questions about her. I just want things to be normal again." "I know, son. I feel the same way." Robert started the car and pulled away from the school. "But we can't hide forever. People will forget about this soon enough when some new story comes along." At home, they found more reporters waiting. Robert drove past them without stopping and parked in the garage, closing the door quickly behind them. "Let's order pizza tonight," Robert suggested. "We can watch a movie and forget about all this for a while." They were halfway through the movie when the doorbell rang. Robert paused the TV and went to look through the peephole. "It's Jack," he told Ethan, opening the door. Jack came in, still wearing his police uniform. He looked serious. "I have some news," he said, sitting down on the couch. "Diana Moreno is out on bail." Robert's face turned pale. "What? How is that possible? She had a gun. She's wanted in 5 states. Her lawyer is very good," Jack explained. "And she has money, probably from her previous victims." The judge set bail at $500,000, and someone paid it this morning. "Is she coming after us?" Ethan asked in a small voice. Jack shook his head. "No, she can't. There's a restraining order. She has to stay at least 500 feet away from both of you. And she's wearing an ankle monitor, so the police know where she is at all times." Robert didn't look convinced. "Can we trust that? After everything she's done?" "I'll have a patrol car drive by your house regularly," Jack promised. "And I'm going to give you my personal cell number. Call me anytime, day or night, if you see or hear anything suspicious." After Jack left, Ethan couldn't focus on the movie anymore. He kept thinking about Diana being out there somewhere, maybe angry at him for ruining her plans. "Maybe we should go stay with Grandma again," he suggested. Robert put his arm around Ethan's shoulders. "We're safe here, Ethan. I promise. I won't let anything happen to you." That night, Ethan had trouble sleeping. Every sound made him jump: the house creaking, the wind blowing a branch against his window, a car driving by on the street. He finally got out of bed and went to his dad's room. "Dad?" he whispered, standing in the doorway. Robert sat up quickly. "What's wrong?" "I can't sleep. I keep thinking about her being out there." Robert moved over and patted the bed beside him. "Come here." Ethan climbed into his dad's bed, something he hadn't done since he was 7. "When I was about your age," Robert said, "my dad taught me something important. He said that brave people aren't people who never feel scared. Brave people are the ones who feel scared, but do the right thing anyway." "Like when I told everyone about her at the wedding?" Ethan asked. "Exactly like that," Robert said. "You were scared, but you did it anyway. That's real courage." "I'm still scared now," Ethan admitted. "Me too," Robert said. "But we're going to be okay. We have each other." As Ethan finally started to drift off to sleep, his dad added, "And tomorrow, we're getting a dog." Ethan's eyes popped open. "Really? What kind?" "A big one," Robert said. "A very big one with a loud bark." "I think it's time, don't you?" For the first time in weeks, Ethan smiled a real smile. "Yes," he said. "It's definitely time." The next day, Robert took Ethan to the animal shelter as promised. They walked past rows of cages filled with dogs of all sizes. Some dogs barked excitedly, while others watched quietly as Robert and Ethan passed by. "Remember, we need a big dog," Robert said. "One that will help us feel safe." Near the end of the row, they found him. A huge black and brown dog with floppy ears and a deep bark. The sign on his cage said his name was Rex, and he was part German Shepherd and part Rottweiler. "He's perfect," Ethan said, his eyes lighting up. The dog looked strong and protective, exactly what they needed. The shelter worker, a kind woman named Miss Patel, let them take Rex into a small yard to play with him. At first, Rex was cautious, staying close to Miss Patel. But after a few minutes, he warmed up to Ethan, taking treats from his hand, and even letting the boy pet him. "Rex was found wandering on the highway 3 months ago," Ms. Patel explained. "No one ever came to claim him. He's about 4 years old and knows basic commands. He's very smart." "Can we take him home today?" Ethan asked eagerly. Ms. Patel smiled. "You'll need to fill out some papers and buy a few supplies. But yes, you can take him home today." 2 hours later, Rex was sitting in the back seat of their car as they drove home. Robert had bought a large dog bed, food and water bowls, dog food, and several toys. "Do you think he'll scare away reporters?" Ethan asked, turning around to look at their new dog. "I think his bark alone will send them running," Robert said with a smile. When they pulled into their driveway, only one reporter was waiting. The woman approached their car, camera in hand, but stopped when Rex gave a deep, loud bark from the back seat. She quickly walked back to her van and drove away. "See," Robert laughed. "He's working already." That night, Rex slept on the floor next to Ethan's bed. For the first time since the wedding day, Ethan slept through the whole night without bad dreams. The next morning, Jack called with news about Diana. "Her lawyer says she wants to talk to you," Jack told Robert. "She says she has something important to tell you." "No way," Robert said firmly. "I have nothing to say to her." "That's what I thought you'd say," Jack replied. "But there's something else. One of her previous husbands, Thomas Wilson, is pressing charges against her for stealing almost $1 million from him. He needs your help and Ethan's help as witnesses." Robert sighed. "Let me think about it. I don't want Ethan involved in a court case if we can avoid it." After hanging up, Robert explained everything to Ethan. They were sitting at the kitchen table, Rex lying at their feet. "Do I have to talk to her?" Ethan asked, his face worried. "No," Robert assured him. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to do. But this man, Thomas, lost a lot of money. Our help might make sure Diana goes to jail for a long time, so she can't hurt anyone else." Ethan thought about it while petting Rex's head. "I think we should help him," he finally said. "It's the right thing to do." Robert nodded. "We'll tell Jack tomorrow. For now, how about we take Rex to the park? He needs to learn his new neighborhood." At the park, many people recognized them from the news. Some strangers came up to talk to them, but Rex stayed close to Ethan, watching carefully. When a man got too close and tried to take a picture with his phone, Rex growled softly, and the man backed away. "Good boy," Ethan whispered, patting Rex's side. As they walked home, Robert's phone rang. It was an unknown number, but he answered it anyway. "Hello." "Robert, it's Diana. Please don't hang up." Robert stopped walking, his face turning pale. Ethan looked up at him with worried eyes. "How did you get my number?" Robert demanded. "You're not supposed to contact us." "I need to warn you," Diana said, her voice urgent. "You're in danger. Not from me, from someone else. Someone worse." Robert's hand tightened around the phone. "What are you talking about?" "The man I was working with," Diana said. "He's angry that I got caught. He blames your son, and he wants revenge." Robert's hand shook as he held the phone. "What partner? What are you talking about?" "His name is Victor," Diana said quickly. "He helped me find rich men to target. He does the research, I do the acting. We split the money after." Ethan was watching his father's face closely. Rex seemed to sense the tension and moved closer to the boy, pressing against his leg. "Why should I believe anything you say?" Robert asked, his voice hard. "You've done nothing but lie since the day we met." "I know you have no reason to trust me," Diana said. "But Victor is dangerous. He has a record of violent crimes. When I got arrested, he lost a lot of money. He thinks it's the boy's fault." Robert put his hand on Ethan's shoulder protectively. "If this is true, why are you warning us? Why do you care?" There was a pause before Diana answered. "Because I never meant for anyone to get hurt physically. What I do is wrong, I know that. I take people's money, but I've never hurt anyone. Victor is different." "I'm calling Jack right now," Robert said. "If you are telling the truth, you need to tell the police everything about this Victor person." "I can't," Diana said, her voice suddenly scared. "He'll know it was me. He has friends everywhere." "Then how did you get my number? How are you even calling me with that ankle monitor on?" Robert demanded. "I don't have much time," Diana said, ignoring his questions. "Just be careful. Don't trust anyone new who comes into your lives right now. Victor might send someone. He might even come himself." The call ended abruptly. Robert stared at his phone, then quickly called Jack. "We need to talk," he told his friend. "Diana just called me with a crazy story about having a dangerous partner who wants revenge." "Stay where you are," Jack said. "I'm sending a patrol car to you right now. Then come straight to the station." 20 minutes later, Robert and Ethan were sitting in a police car heading to the station. Rex had to stay home, which made Ethan nervous. "Will Rex be okay by himself?" he asked. "He'll be fine," Robert assured him. "We locked all the doors and windows, and we won't be gone long." At the police station, Jack was waiting with Officer Rivera. They took Robert and Ethan to the same comfortable room they had used before. "Tell us exactly what Diana said," Jack asked. Robert repeated everything from the phone call. Officer Rivera took notes while Jack's face grew more serious. "We should check if this Victor person is real," Jack said when Robert finished. "If he is, we need to find him before he causes trouble." Officer Rivera typed something into her computer. "I'm looking at Diana's visitor log and phone records from the jail. She hasn't had any visitors, and the only calls she made were to her lawyer." "So how did she call me?" Robert asked. "That's the problem," Jack said. "She didn't. Her ankle monitor shows she's been at her lawyer's office all day." "Then who called me?" Robert's face went pale as he realized what this might mean. Officer Rivera looked up from her computer with a worried expression. "There's a Victor Ramirez in our database who has worked with female con artists before. He has a record of fraud, theft, and assault. His current location is unknown." "If Diana didn't call you," Jack said slowly, "then it might have been Victor himself, pretending to be her to find out what you know or to scare you." Ethan's eyes went wide. "He knows Dad's phone number. Does that mean he knows where we live too?" The adults exchanged worried glances. Jack stood up. "I'm sending officers to your house right now, and you two are not going home until we make sure it's safe." "What about Rex?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling. "He's all alone." "The officers will check on him," Jack promised. "He'll be okay." Robert put his arm around Ethan. "Where will we stay?" "We have safe houses for situations like this," Officer Rivera explained. "Places where no one can find you. You'll stay there until we catch this Victor person." "How long will that take?" Ethan asked. "I don't know," Jack said honestly. "But we're going to do everything we can to catch him quickly." Officer Rivera's phone rang. She answered it and listened for a moment, her face turning serious. When she hung up, she looked at Jack. "The officers at the house report signs of a break-in," she said quietly. "The back door was forced open. The dog is missing. Rex is gone," Ethan cried, tears filling his eyes. "We'll find him," Robert promised, though he wasn't sure how they would keep this promise. "We'll find him, son." 3 days passed with Robert and Ethan staying in a small apartment that the police used as a safe house. The place had plain furniture and no pictures on the walls. 2 police officers stayed with them all the time. Ethan hardly smiled or talked. He was too worried about Rex. "We'll find him," Robert kept saying, though each day his voice sounded less sure. On the morning of the 4th day, Jack arrived with news. "We found Victor Ramirez," he said. "He was trying to leave town on a bus. We arrested him last night." "Did he have Rex?" Ethan asked right away, jumping up from the couch. Jack shook his head sadly. "No, I'm sorry. He didn't have the dog with him." Ethan's shoulders dropped. Robert put his arm around his son and looked at Jack. "What about our house? Is it safe to go home now?" "Yes, it's safe," Jack said. "Victor confessed to breaking in, but he says he didn't take the dog. He claims the back door was already open when he got there, and the dog was already gone." "Do you believe him?" Robert asked. "I don't know," Jack admitted, "but we have him in jail now, so you two can go home." The ride back to their house was quiet. When they arrived, everything looked normal from the outside. Inside, a few things were out of place, showing that someone had searched through their belongings. The police had fixed the broken back door. Ethan went straight to his room. The dog bed where Rex had slept was empty. He sat down next to it and touched the soft blanket they had bought for their new pet. "I'm sorry, buddy," he whispered. Robert stood in the doorway, watching his son with a heavy heart. The past few months had been so hard on Ethan. First dealing with the almost stepmother who turned out to be a criminal, then all the attention from the media, and now losing Rex. It was too much for a 10-year-old boy. "Let's get some dinner," Robert suggested. "I can order pizza." Ethan nodded but didn't move from the floor beside Rex's bed. Just then, they heard a sound from the backyard, a scratching at the door. Then a familiar bark. "Rex!" Ethan shouted, jumping up and running through the house with Robert right behind him. When they opened the back door, there stood Rex, dirty and thinner than before, but alive and wagging his tail. Ethan dropped to his knees and threw his arms around the dog's neck. Rex licked the boy's face, his tail wagging so hard his whole body shook. "He came home," Robert said in amazement. "He found his way back to us." The police came to check Rex for any clues about where he had been. The vet examined him and said he was healthy but had been on his own for several days. No one could explain exactly what had happened, but everyone agreed that Rex was a very smart dog who had somehow escaped whoever took him. 2 weeks later, Diana Moreno appeared in court. She pleaded guilty to fraud and identity theft. She would spend at least 5 years in jail. Victor Ramirez also pleaded guilty to breaking into Robert's house. With his previous record, he would be in jail for a long time. Slowly, life started to become normal again. The reporters stopped coming to the house. Kids at school found new things to talk about. Robert and Ethan could go to the store or the park without people staring at them. One quiet Saturday morning, Ethan sat on the back porch with Rex lying beside him. Robert brought out glasses of orange juice and sat down with them. "I got a letter yesterday," Robert said, "from Thomas Wilson, one of Diana's other husbands. He wanted to thank us for helping put her in jail. He's starting a support group for people who were tricked by con artists." "That's good," Ethan said, stroking Rex's fur. "He also said something I've been thinking about too," Robert continued. "He said that bad things happen, but they don't have to define our lives. We get to choose what happens next." Ethan thought about this. "So what happens next for us?" Robert smiled. "Well, I was thinking we could take a vacation this summer. Just you, me, and Rex. Go somewhere quiet by a lake. Do some fishing, hiking, whatever you want." "I'd like that," Ethan said with a real smile. It was the biggest smile Robert had seen on his son's face in months. As if understanding the happy moment, Rex sat up and put his head on Ethan's knee. The boy scratched behind the dog's ears. "You know what I learned from all this?" Ethan asked. "What's that?" Robert replied. "Sometimes the worst days can lead to the best things," Ethan said, looking at Rex. "If you hadn't almost married Diana, we might never have gotten Rex." Robert laughed softly. "That's very wise, son. Finding the good even in bad situations is a great way to live." They sat together in the morning sunlight, a father, a son, and their loyal dog, a family that had been tested but had come through stronger than before.